there, he must defeat one of the Elite Four. As Viper, at the time of this series, is sitting, what, second, I believe, on the board, only behind Marine Lord. It's quite the Leviathan to beat, especially after the performance we saw out of Viper in that round 2.
Yeah, crazy. And not a lot of people saw that one coming, that he would just go so wild in crazy finals as well. Viper, now with the early Mosque opening and the second scout, has the Scholar out now, while we see an early mill from our French player. Well, that's interesting.
I've been watching this actually in French mirrors. Like that's the beautiful part. You know when you get a mirror, like you're a fan of mirrors as well, right? Because you get to like dissect the small details of what's better. And I've observed this, and realistically, it actually boosts your income by a decent amount, just getting the wheelbarrow as quickly as possible, whereas the other build involves you rushing feudal and then getting wheelbarrow tech after you tech up, right? So I was noticing in a kind of mirror matchup with similar spawns, like it was almost an extra 100 resource at least that the player who went for wheelbarrow first was getting versus the one who waited like an extra minute or two going up in the school of cavalry. So it does seem like it's the way to go. I guess the one kind of curious detail is if you do choose to do this, you are sacrificing your tempo timing a bit. It means your first night is going to be delayed compared to the old build.
And Delhi, it feels like if they survive the first 2-3 nights and get all their upgrades rolling, they suddenly have a really strong mid-feudal age. The big question though, and that's actually a matchup we just had on the Muslim stream, where he played Delhi against French and felt so powerless because he didn't have the mobility. He had to play Spearman, Archer at home, while the French player just went Royal Knights and Archers, had so much more mobility, and Delhi player really struggled to move out.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it's something that a lot of people kind of been querying. I know it's, whether it's your high-level player or low-level player, like it's always a discussion at the moment. It's like, why is everyone always going for stables first with a lot of these civs right now? It's because it gives you the options, right? It sets you as the aggressor. And even on the defensive, you can pick your fights. And when you're up against the French, that's one of the frustrations you have to deal with, especially the Delhi. Like, you could push Horsemen, yes, but how are they really going to match up against French Knights? Even in a 2-for-1 exchange, it feels like because of the bonus damage the French Knights now get for 5 seconds after a clash, it's very hard to just kind of 2-for-1 that exchange.
For everyone who just tuned in and is asking themselves, what do we have in store for today? It basically is the PuppyPaw storyline for now, and then most likely we will jump into the lower bracket and try to see who will make the cut, who will jump into the top 8 there in the end. Oh, this is going to be such an interesting day. So many people with so much on the line.
Absolutely. I mean, you know the best way to think of it is, Nili, actually? It's a tale of brothers, right? Because right now, like Vortex, he's qualified, but Lucifron hasn't. And right now, Running is in contest for that. So if he beats Vortex, like that's one blocker, that's one bigger problem for Lucifron to worry about. In conjunction with that, not only is the Viper PuppyPaw series going on right now, but also the Beastie QT Wham. Two players, two bros, in fact, from Canada that are looking like to the front runners to make it into that elite playoff now.
Yeah, it's like we will have to take a look at the bracket basically every single match. There's so much changing as well, so many different scenarios, who could qualify, who's hoping for whom to fail. Obviously, everyone has to focus on themselves, but sometimes it's, not always your fate in your own hand. And interesting scenarios. Viper obviously through, just fights for the better seed. PuppyPaw for his tournament life in the whole tournament here. And PuppyPaw, look at that. Pulled everything away from gold. So this one feels more like a horseman opening or just massive
no, he's going
archery
stone.
ranges.
He's going stone. This is the double TC play.
Ooh.
This has been getting really popular for the French, actually. I've been seeing this a lot more at the moment. Viper was doing it a lot, but he, honestly, whenever he's doing it, he's like French on Hill and Dale. And to be honest, at the moment, Viper seems to have like a rule written into his main base code, where if Hill and Dale, at least 3 TCs must be built. But a lot of players have been doing this with the French now. It's surprisingly effective.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Because also, you expect so much aggression, you fear so much aggression from French, that you feel like, okay, I can't like super aggressively open and try to punish their town center, because if they just build army and you build some army, they will overwhelm you.
Yeah, it comes back to what we talked about previously, the whole concept of implied odds, right? Like, the face value of the French and what they're meant to do can be contradicted by these sort of curveballs. And even if you go double scout like Viper did, there's still time it takes to get that info, right? By the time you realize what your opponent's done, you may have locked in your first few minutes of intended gameplay. And it means now you're pivoting and transitioning from behind.
So early siege engineering.
Oh, what? And
Viper wants to push.
this won't be realized, right? Because this is a standard play for most builds for the Deli right now. The double blacksmith, because it takes longer to do your researches, it's just worth investing in a second blacksmith because you save that in the tech costs. And now that he also goes for a stable, this is so astute, actually, right? Because now, let's think that from PuppyPaw's perspective. If you were PuppyPaw nearly right now, would you expect a ram rush to be coming anywhere near 10, 12 minutes?
Absolutely not. If I see the stable, even though it's late, I might expect, okay, you might have built something that I didn't scout. But look at that, the TC is so much on the open as well. That's a perfect target for the Viper.
Wow, and it's because PuppyPaw sees the greed, right? This is juicy. Multi-tree lines, the deer right next to him, buried to the side. I mean, this is kind of the dream, especially when you consider he doesn't need the second TC on gold because he has double gold, in fact, triple gold deposit to the right of his town center in the corner.
Chivalry now coming in by PuppyPaw before he built a single knight. That's quite interesting.
What? It's like, I mean, you know, you can't be royalty if you don't have a crown, right? It does seem a little bit funny because, like, the standard build is, what, at least 3 knights, possibly 4 before you go chivalry most of the time?
Yeah, something like that feels very reasonable. Viper now scouts the open TC, sees, okay, you pulled away from stone, so won't be towered with arrow slits, it won't be another extra TC. I feel like I can expand because I know that you can't have a lot of army, but PuppyPaw, he needs to make sure that he continues producing army, starting latest right now.
And the crazy part is, like, usually when I see Viper in this situation where he's up against an opponent who eco booms, we know what Viper's standard response usually is. It's not even to double down aggressively. It's to go, okay, I can eco boom myself. I've seen him do this with the Mongols. I've seen him do it with the HRE. Kind of interesting that he's not doing it with the Deli, but you can understand why when the French don't just get 2 TCs worth, right? They get like 2.2 or 2.3, and then that scales up because every tech up the French get, it takes less time to build villages.
But French still not a single real military unit out. Only now the first... Horseman loses some HP. Only now the first knight out. Therefore, Viper can move out, will get some control over the sacred sites. 150 gold for him per minute, per sacred site.
Big deal there. It seems like PuppyPaw has sacrificed that feudal lock that usually we see players obsess over against the Deli in exchange for eco booming of his own. So it kind of feels like both players might get their cake. It's just a case of who's going to get the final slice, right? Because I think what we might be heading towards is a like hardcore clash in Castle.
I'm not even sure. I think Viper needs to make something happen in Feudal Age. If we go to Castle Age and Viper didn't kill 15, 20 villagers, he has no way of contesting here.
Yeah, that's why I'm curious to see if like Viper would go on the stone at all, but it seems like he's just doubling down on the horseman. The worry about this is because PuppyPaw went back to the second stable, he's going to catch up to you. Even when you have the production efficiency, like it's a 2-for-1, right? If I just gave you the maths of roughly like the cost of a knight versus a horseman is 2 horsemen to 1, but these French knights outperform. So logically, even if you actually now bank scholars in your stables and you have 2 stables and that puts you up to 4, because PuppyPaw is here with a decreased production time on those knights, in theory, as long as he can always afford to push out over there, he'll have the advantage. And that's why we see the striking. He does get 1 villager, but now that knights show up, his only choice is to just kite away.
Just make something happen against the scout, finds at least that kill. But still, Viper, how much army are you building? Like, I think he's playing a 1-1-1. I think maybe even more spearmen and more rams could be an option. Pulled some scholars as well for healing, but that's not an army that can threaten a town center.
No, and worryingly, he doesn't actually have production efficiency up on all the buildings, right? I think he actually prioritized onto the infantry now, realizing that his economy isn't strong enough to support production efficiency out of a stable as well. Yeah, there you go. So he goes for the cheaper unit. This is going to leave him static, but I think this is all about his timing, right? He sacrifices the horseman production now because he's ready for rams.
Yeah, also he sent all those scholars out. Oh yeah, as you can see, now goes for the first round. He sent the scholars out to get control over the sacred sites. Archer numbers, not that scary. As you can see, 6 archers, 6 knights, while Viper is sitting on a solid 29 military already.
Yeah, he's getting pretty bulky, but Puppy, he has the quality, right? That's why it just deters him, because the longer he waits, the more Knights come out and look at this Viper. Because he's playing 1 TC and trying to contest, he goes out into the pocket ecos, and that is ripe for the taking. All that effort you put in to kill 1 villager, and it looks like, trivially, you're about to lose double that number at least.
Well, quite far away from the town center Knights.
Wait, he got the textiles. Okay, that's respectful in here. I mean... I gotta give him credit, right? Yeah, because of textiles. How many players actually ignorantly don't get textiles against the French, and they pay the price for it? That was pretty heads up.
Yeah, nice move, surely. Horseman now coming in, only 1 ram. Remember, that town center, only 2.4k HP.
Yep, and that's why the Knights look to clash. Horsemen are going to bait them in a little bit further, trying to block the attacks onto the archers to give away that bonus damage, but it looks like he doesn't have a choice but to back up here. The composition just a little bit too strong right now for Viper. The concern here is how quickly that town center is going to fall. It's only 12 taps from the ram to take it down. Outpost isn't really going to change much about the outcome. He's forced back, and it means the town center will probably be sacrificed in the next minute.
That was so horrible for PuppyPaw. What's the KD now? It feels like 20-5, lost all the archers. He did nothing, just pull all the villagers. You know that you have to be heavily ahead. He needed to bulk up his numbers further. And now look at that. That's a pretty bad fight as well. Not enough archers.
Oh my god, and yeah, the damage coming out from these units. Remember that the Spearmen get huge amounts of bonus damage, and also the brace factor. He's actually exploiting this perfectly. The Spearmen hold back the Knights, and the Horsemen are used to burn more buildings down. And while PuppyPaw is being forced to retreat, he does at least get the eco up to the north side to try and rebuild. The concern is it's still out in no man's land. And Viper saw you go in that direction and understands that with that many villagers, there's no way you can fall back to your primary TC. Meaning in the next minute, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a raid to the north side. And that's exactly why Puppy needs to take the fight. The fight is not to his benefit here. Too many spearmen still in the mixer. Horsemen wrap around to get rid of the few straggler archers here. And although he will look to engage the horsemen now, the concern is just how much has been lost here. Even in an even exchange here, it doesn't work out as this are 240 resource units.
Military count alone tells you the story. 9 military against 37 right now. And Viper, he can just continue pushing through the center. And now, behind the scenes, obviously Viper can easily take the sacred sites like he's doing at the bottom. And PuppyPaw, he does not have those knights to spare anymore. He can't send them over. Okay, actually he does. Good job on him.
Yeah, but the concern is whenever you send them over, right, like you look weaker back at home. Like, that's the risk he ran with this eco boom build up against the deli. I mean, I appreciate the PuppyPaw tried to experiment a little with this, but we're seeing exactly why you have to address the deli at this point. Because if they double down, what's going to happen in the next minute or two? It's the gold trickle. You mentioned it before, 150 gold per site. He already has 2 at his disposal. That's 300 gold per minute. Oh, he's raiding in the north side.
Well.
I think he moved in the horsemen. They're already on top of him. Looks like the Knights will address them there.
And Viper, he's not even pushing for the main town center. He knows this is the most important area.
Well, this is all your eco. Like, that's what your eco advantage, right? Like, up there. But, oh my god, he's pulling him 2 ways now. So Viper, second round moving in. And now you have to make a choice. Deal with the remaining horsemen or lose a big chunk of your base. And the problem is just a few horsemen here can do a lot of damage to villages. PuppyPaw, any move he makes is predictable, and Viper is playing him like a fiddle.
Oh man, and archer count is already so low. Only 4 archers in the field for PuppyPaw. Now 5, and losing the archer range will really hurt. Won't really get into his numbers. And Viper, from here on, he only needs to produce spearmen, basically.
And he understands it, right? Like, he's attacking that woodline on purpose. You can see how low the numbers are. Even the Knights, although they've reached up to 13, just spearmen alone, as you said, all he needs to do is push them. And because he has the production efficiency, any racks he places can be doubled up in its effectivity. And speaking of double up, the unit that's used to do that, they're on the front line as well. So not only is he pushing 4 racks worth of spearmen, but he has got scholars on the front line to heal any damage done.
10 scholars on the field already, now taking a big engagement there at the front. Villagers even being pulled, trying to decimate the numbers of spearmen, but I think there is still way too many left.
Yeah, small pokey stick doesn't beat long pokey stick in this situation. And also the Rams now moving on the TC. This cluster fight is getting worrisome. Barely any archers in the field. Retreat in the north side. The horsemen do pinch back in. And now PuppyPaw, look at his economy. Look how dead it is. 250 food being gained a minute. Wood's the only thing he can find in quantity, and he's going to need a lot of it because if he wants to get food back online, he'd need to switch into farms, but understands there's no wiggle room for that. Viper with a swift opening to this series.
Ooh, what a nice timing Viper found there. The instant siege engineering. He knew he didn't need army right now. He wanted to set himself up for a bit later, got the sacred sites, waited for a solid plus 15, plus 20 military, and made one crazy push. PuppyPaw, I think if he gets another like 30 seconds or full minute, he wins this game. But Viper did not give him the time for that.
Absolutely. Like, honest, I just want to give so much credit to Viper. We highlighted, right, that the double blacksmith play, you identified he was going for siege engineering. Well done to you. And then the follow-up detail, well done to Viper. The stables drop. Like, imagine how PuppyPaw feels in that situation. Like, okay, it's just a standard deli opening. He's going to, like, play some midfield aggression, but he's just going to do that cheesy thing where they go for sacred sites. Then out of nowhere, you understand why they call him the snake. Because he just comes out of nowhere. He snatches the game off the back of that double racks, archery range play, and he punishes PuppyPaw. He gives him the rope, right? He says, this is the map, have it as you choose because you are the French. And the moment he takes it for the keeping, Viper instantly snatches it back from him. I mean, this was phenomenal. Like, the deli, we've seen him played a lot of different ways, but the thing that I loved about what PuppyPaw done here, Viper done against PuppyPaw here, is something that I've been crediting him compared to a lot of other players a lot, which is that he's very adaptive, right? Viper doesn't tend to make a move without seeing what his opponent is doing. He's very much a transitional reactionary player to his advantage. And a lot of that comes down to the scouting. Like, he built double scout as deli. And it's kind of showing just how important scouting is when even the Abbasses have been doing that more frequently recently.
Yeah. Double scouts, you get more sheep, it's more controlled, you get more scouting in. And I think the main story of this one, well, we see a 1999 donation. Thank you, kind sir. The main thing was when that push came in, I think PuppyPaw should have realized, wow, I'm so far behind the military, I need to buy more time for myself. Give up the expansion, give up the base. The tower needs to be closer to your starting town center. And once you get to like 16 archers next to your starting TC, then it's just way easier. He probably felt he had to fight there,